For over a century, the story of the Titanic has captivated the world. We know the tragic ending, the icy plunge, and the lives lost. But beneath the waves, another story unfolds. A story of resilience, of human connection, and of treasures whispered about in hushed tones for decades. Deep within the wreckage, untouched by human hands, lie the Titanic's lost and found. Not just gold and jewels, but everyday objects, each one a silent testament to the lives so abruptly cut short. A child's doll, a love letter, a forgotten photograph, each holding a piece of a shattered world. These are not just relics of a bygone era. They are keys to unlocking the untold stories of the Titanic's passengers. Each object is a brushstroke painting, a portrait of lives forever etched in time. People thought the RMS Titanic would never sink when it set sail for the first time in 1912. People were interested in the ship's first trip, which was across the Atlantic from England to America. The trip was interesting because the ship was so big and fancy. This ship was more than 52,000 tons when it was fully loaded. It was 882 feet long and 92 feet wide. Of course, this left a lot of room for comfort. There were outdoor bars, a gym, a swimming pool, and fancy Turkish baths in the ship's first-class area. It looked like the Titanic was a dream come true. But the dream quickly turned into a bad one. The famous ship hit an iceberg and sank only 4 days after it had left. There were about 2,224 guests and crew on the Titanic, and about 1,500 of them died. The tragedy only killed about 700 people, most of them women and children. For 73 years, the bits and pieces of the Titanic were lost at sea. Oceanographer Robert Ballard from the United States and scientist Jean-Louis Michel from France found the wreck in 1985. The wreckage was found 12,500 feet below the surface of the water, about 370 miles south of Canada's Newfoundland. A private American business called RMS Titanic Incorporated has taken more than 5,000 items from the Titanic since 1987. What's in these relics? From china to bits of the ship. Between 1987 and 2004, RMS Titanic Incorporated went on 7 study and salvage trips to the underwater site of the Titanic to get artifacts from the ship. Let's talk about some interesting items that were found on these trips. We will start with the iconic Titanic love letters. Divers found a trunk in the ruins of the Titanic that had love letters written to Howard Irwin many years after the ship sank in 1912. Howard wasn't on the luxury ship though. His friend who drowned was carrying his bags. Howard also didn't do very well, which is too bad. The man from North America was a big bettor who had been raped, taken hostage, and made to work on a ship going to the Middle East. Even though he got away, Pearl, the love of his life, died of typhoid before he got home. On board the Titanic, German citizen George Rosenschein hid who he really was. He lived in France under the name George Thorne while he was there. He was born in 1866. Records found in a bag show that he was traveling first class with his lover, Gertrude Maybelle. Maybelle, a widow from Manhattan, also got on in France, and she just barely made it by getting out in the last lifeboat. Rosenschein passed away. Later, his body was found, and his name was finally found out. Next up, we have Top Hat. With first-class passes costing around $100 each, people who went on the Titanic must have thought it would be very fancy and luxurious. This top hat was found in the wreckage. It was mostly made of silk and had a sticker from a high-end store called Herbert Johnson. Herbert Johnson is a London-based company that has been making hats and caps since 1889 and is located on the trendy New Bond Street. Now we will discuss the musical instruments. Also found was a broken-in-two clarinet, which was a sad reminder that the players on the ship stayed behind as it sank. As the ship sank, the band is said to have played songs on the foredeck to help calm people down. Steve Turner, the author of the band that played on, tells the human stories of the 8 artists who had never played together before the trip. String player Wallace Hartley, 33, was in charge of them. He had left his fiancée behind to take a job on the Titanic. Hartley played the famous violin that he used to play Nearer, My God, to Thee on April 14, 1912. In 2013, it was sold at an auction in the UK for $1.7 million. He got the violin as a gift from his fiancée, Maria Robinson. It was found in the North Atlantic with a case strapped to his body. Next on our list are clothes. It is quite unlikely that anybody aboard the Titanic were aware that they were eating one of the last dinners that had ever been given. According to reports from the BBC, the first-class lunch was purchased at auction in 2012 for the sum of $83,000. It took the ship a total of 12 hours to smash into the ice, and it took 2 hours and 40 minutes for it to become completely submerged. There were some passengers who were not going first class, of course. This pair of boots was discovered to be contained inside the leather bag of William Henry Allen, a toolmaker who was 35 years old. Allen was a member of the third-class passengers who also passed away. 75% of the 300 persons who were in the third class passed away at the same time as him. We will discuss pocket watch next. Numerous personal items have been discovered, all of which contribute to the narrative of the events that took place in 1912. This particular pocket watch belonged to Sinai Cantor, a Russian immigrant who was a passenger on the Titanic liner. Miriam, his wife, was able to be rescued by him before he perished in the icy water. He was able to save her life. It was in New York that he was put to rest. As an additional possibility, it was also possible to locate a pocket watch that belonged to the visitor John Chapman. When Chapman's watch stopped moving in the early hours of January 45, it was a problem. It was at this time when the ship was partially submerged in water. Next, we had Titanic jewels. Who was this Emmy? Unfortunately, nobody is aware of this. Her ring was discovered in the year 1987. There were only 2 other ladies on board who were called Emmy, despite the fact that her name is spelled out in diamonds on a rose gold and silver ring that is 15 carats in weight. One was a member of the crew, while the other was rumored to be a passenger traveling in the third class. It is possible that a lady named Amanda or Amelia was the owner of the band. However, no one has come forward to claim ownership of the band. Thus it is very unlikely that Emmy is one of the survivors. Lastly, we will talk about Bronze Cherub. Some people wouldn't believe that the unsinkable Titanic was sinking, and they wouldn't leave the safety of the ship for what looked like dangerous lifeboats. This metal child, which is present near the grand staircase and draws attention to the tragedy, brings it to life. The water broke through the dome above at one point and rushed down the grand staircase steps to where the bronze child was sitting at the bottom. It was possible for one foot of the metal child to separate from the base. It was later found among the wreckage on the ocean floor, where the Titanic still lies more than 100 years after it sank. A lot of artifacts have been found in the ruins, but a lot more from the Titanic disaster are still at the bottom of the ocean, slowly breaking down due to rust, ocean currents, and eddies. Remember to subscribe for more intriguing tales and insights, and until next time, may these stories continue to enrich and inspire you.